Sorry, I pressed the wrong button, but actually, it came at the right time because there was something they control me to do, proving the level of evolution. But the last part, what I was showing, is this: is what DARPA, which is under the Department of Defense, and I will make sure to say that what they were working on during this time.
Was one of the main goals, the biggest goals of the MK Ultra program. And again, when the CIA,
And I'm not bringing up the MK Ultra, which what they were able to do there, that they're trying to hide, is also disturbing. But
that they had developed these technologies that were effective. They also claimed that they had released everything they had.
this man talks about how the MK Ultra actually, they denied a lot of the things that they were able to do, but a lot of specialists believe that they're actually just lying, but they try to cover up that they actually were able to attain what they were trying to accomplish. Of course, once again, before this, like from 50s to the 70s, that's what they're working on. But this is DARPA in the 60s or so.
In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. The project reportedly ended in 1969, but DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day.
Jose Delgado was saying that he wished he would have used this technology, which in the interview he confirmed they were using electromagnetic radiation to see how it influenced the brain. And he was like, instead of implanting a device, this would be the way that can remotely manipulate the brain without implanting anything in the brain. No devices, just those electromagnetic would just be the influencer, the stimulator of your brain in these ways. And by stimulating in whatever part of the brain, they can make you experience that. DARPA in the 60s were working on that. Now, at this point, it's just obvious that we're talking about like 60s, and a lot of these grandparents weren't even born at that time. Or just barely born, or just kids. And this is the things that we're doing. Now imagine the evolution of today. Talk about evolution of psycho manipulation of the brain. Imagine we talk about the 2000s, even just the 90s. If this man was talking about 1969 and the advancement of technology would give them the ability to do this, and they have clowns around me that are supposed to negate that, and this is the childlike trash that don't respect themselves. They're children. They don't care. They don't care if they sound retarded. Going through the scripts of what they tell him to say to negate this. This would be maybe, this is why this man said this.
But not if you listen to Nick Beige.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I spoke with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experience. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is the greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Beige is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction. The ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behaviors of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems, being able to not just debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain. But how? HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based in Alaska, radio frequency antennas.
HARP antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Becker says HARP can also be used for more sinister ends.
HARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response. The brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
Can we hear sounds?
Designed to interact with the human nervous system in order to remotely pick up on someone's neural network or EEG and not only receive that and monitor it, but manipulate it and place it back into the victim to control their emotions or control their actions or bodily functions for that matter. The other more recent term we have for that is EEG heterodyning or EEG cloning. The difference between EEG heterodyning and EEG cloning would be, let's say, me remotely receiving your EEG and then duplicating it and putting that in another person to give them your same thoughts or feelings or physical reactions. EEG heterodyning would be receiving your EEG, manipulating it to put it back inside your head to give us a desired physical reaction or emotional reaction.
So you understand the evolution now. And right now, on top of that, they have these perps around you that find ways to get you to be confused. But listen to this man who opened my eyes to all of this. His name is Robert Duncan, and he talks about how they rewire your brain and everything else. But right now, as I'm speaking, or as you're hearing this, there's these perps whose their job is to negate and counter the reality that they are manipulating the brain. And it's obvious, because they want me to not think that I'm being manipulated to experience these disgusting, disturbing experiences. But I should identify to this persona they've concocted together using my brain to manipulate my brain this way. Manipulate my brain to experience things that I will not experience naturally, and to try to push in this persona they implanted by forcing my brain to experience these reactions, these stimulations, and putting together things they can to try to make me identify with this. Listen to this, man.
Over 50 years.
Listen to this.
My name is Dr. I'm a medical doctor from Texas.
It's something after that. And by the way, I'm hearing somebody saying that she's 15. Because by the way, on top of that, this trash compromised the teenage retards. And apparently, I am being framed by somebody who's apparently 15 years old. They're going to pretend I'm with. It's so disgusting. We'll get to that point that this Department of Defense technology applied onto us actually not the people that you should think of to care for children. And as they manipulate us in these disgusting ways, they use these retard, childlike individuals to try to negate reality. And for me, the PSYOP is to try to create like as if it's this radical, brave, daring, and they dare. Like what you see when you see like radical kind of walk, like it's like, oh, we're daring because. But applying that onto this technology, apply that onto this program that is using human subjects to develop this weapon system. They're contracted by these governmental entities with a lot of problem with pedophilia to confuse, disorient me into accepting this bullshit reality they put together, because the reality is this. This is what they've been developing for decades, and this is what's happening here.
I've submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
you do that, you can control them using neuro-linguistic programming techniques. You're rewiring their thought processes and brains. And so this gets into what's called offensive information warfare. And they used it, I believe, in the Gulf War. You can call it a eugenics program. But also walk them to their, they want to see if they can hyper game theory. How do you, they want to see if they can manipulate people to do things that are irrational, but also walk them to their death. And so you can call it a eugenics program. And they need to sample all cultures, language throughout the world to define the probability matrices of which tricks, techniques, deception works. So how do you control the brain? Most people don't believe that, but you can't control me. I haven't.
This is what's happening. They're using human subjects from all culture, all races, to continuously develop this technology, where the findings can be traced back to the 1950s. And today, with the level of technology advancements, you can only imagine what they're capable of doing. And to know that there's people writing books in the 60s talk about what the brain can be manipulated, how they can be manipulated the brain, and the implication of this, at this point, basic, not even basic, just old technology, and what they could have done in the 60s and the 50s and this trash are still trying to play these games where they contract this loser to just live life, just gaslighting, recreating reality in these disturbing ways. Because what's happening to me, they do this pedophilia type of torture, and it's not unique to me. Because they have the ability to implant this manipulation and this thought process, this make me experience sexual stimulation, thought process, and using this technology. The other target individuals have mentioned literally the same.
Or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as just
it is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind, putting thoughts of it. Like this disgusting thing. And you saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting things that I didn't want to talk about because it makes me sick. I don't even like those words in my mind. But it is what it is. So I have no choice now but to acknowledge that there are people in my surroundings or whatever they're doing. I don't know how they do it. I don't care. I don't know if it's through weapons. I don't know. I don't care.
This is a common breakdown tactic of belief systems and the human will. In no-touch torture, the techniques are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their minds, and vice versa.
They use the
Almost all target individuals are dealing with these disgusting manipulations. A good chunk, a good percentage, especially if you're dealing with this like manipulation of the mind. And they play with your libido in these disgusting ways. And then they have this contracted lowlife who's supposed to gaslight you. Try to make you feel guilty for how they're manipulating your brain to have this manipulation. And they act so fanatical too. Oh, because it's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, you're acting this way. when the trash are involved in a program that does this manipulation, and this manipulation is really basic because this is what they could have done in the 50s.
Can be used to sexually manipulate the target. It can make the target feel sexual arousal.
They could have done that in the 50s, but obviously with different devices. And today, this pedophilia type of tormenting is a consistent tactic.
As malodorants. This is the alteration of the smell sensation so that I am often made to smell various things, including smoke, burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including the threat of...
I did not come up with this word. They're nasty lowlife. And they're supposed to gaslight you to think that you're now being manipulated. Today, to negate the obviousness that this book's showing that, oh, sexual manipulation, this is the nothings. This is nothing. Like that man said, when it comes to thought manipulation and rewire your thought process, your perception, your memories, this is when we talk about this more sophisticated version. But stimulation, sensation, this is nothing. Emotions, that, we could have done that. They could have done that in the 50s. Now it becomes thought process, perceptions, dreams, and memories, and not reasoning, influencing your thoughts in ways that you're just so granular. And then on top of that, having this purpose that's supposed to make you think. And this is what they do to me. They make me have this experience, and then they have this way of just reacting. Sometimes, one of the things they like to do, right? They do this scare tactic of like whippings, noise of whipping. You can hear them. I'm like, okay, I'll run to that. And for me, because I love this purpose. At this point, they don't even gaslight. It's not even about gaslighting me because I'm not going. I'm not going with this. I know what you guys are doing. You're disgusting trash. I know what this is really about. But they still want to paint this PSYOP, this facade, in this way where they're like avenging, protecting, this and that, when in truth they make you have this disgusting reaction for the purpose of try to vilify you for what they make you experience. And if it's not that, they're like, oh, but you paid for what you did. For me, for example, when I was in 8th grade, they love to use this thing where, oh, approve, and they say that in different languages. Approve is, remember what you did when you're in middle school. I'm like, what? You just heard some woman who say you're doing the pedophilia type of torture. Almost all target individuals are dealing with this. Almost all. You can force people to get sexual stimulation. You think I'm going to be thinking, oh, no, it's my act of a child that was inappropriate, but not to the level that you wish it was. That you're making me, that's what they try to make me. They're making me think, how I used to experience things when I was a child. And that's that proof. Well, there is testimonials of thousands saying, hey, they do this pedophilia type of torture. This man that collected these testimonials, who says almost all target individuals are forced to do that. What do you think? A woman who teaches children says they do the pedophilia type of torture. It's beyond validation. And I'm not even done yet. Because you're going to hear what they do to children. Because test subject, like I said, comes in all races and all ages. Children, infants, are used one way or another to develop this weapon system. Some of the cases, it's not just because they want to use the child as to see what's happening to the child's brain, but sometimes just to create some kind of stress onto the adult that's responsible of that child. And this foul low life want to live a fantasy where, okay, we're not in this program that can force you to get sexual arousals, that can manipulate your thought process in these most disgusting ways, which a lot of others have said. But because we look this way, we're just mapping, pay for what you did when you were in 8th grade. That we're making it trash us in the program that is torturing and killing children. It's so disturbing. And so humiliating. And then to find out the entities that run this program, that have been developing this technology, right now known to have problem with pedophilia. That's such a problem that a bill called End National Defense Network Abuse Act was created. It's disturbing. But this is part of what they do. It's part of the gimmicks. Listen to this. That's when you start understanding that it's a system. Now listen to this, man. Why would they do this kind of nasty manipulation? Why would they force people to have this reaction? What's the purpose behind this?
For example, artificial thoughts, imagination, and mental torture.
I also often see highly disturbing pornographic images and videos, including highly disturbing pedophilia type of images and videos when I close my eyes.
You might guess that this person developed delusional disorder. This is a paranoid schizophrenia. But first of all, nobody develops paranoid schizophrenia in the 50s, in their 50s. This is, if you haven't developed it by 30, it's not. Then this technology exists. These nefarious programs exist. And it's hard to imagine for a person that why would you do something like this? But if you think about the new type of warfare,
cognitive warfare.
Exactly, it's a cognitive warfare. You don't have to kill people that you are fighting against. You can just degrade their brain. You can
you alter their minds.
Yeah, alter their minds,
personalities.
And it's like change.
This is how advanced this technology has gone. And of course it's weaponized because the Department of Defense is the one in charge of developing this weapon system. And right now it's weaponized in that sense. In the 60s, they could just make you have simulation. Now, completely thought process, imaginations, and create personas.
This gets into creating Manchurian.
And listen to the same tactics they use, the PSYOPs, to confuse you.
Okay, so they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's. So they'll say we're the V2K. So they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all these stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than a massive government could do this.
I got next door childlike individuals who wants me to think it's their money and this group of radical. It's disgusting. And then when they see me experience this manipulation, that it's not manipulation, just a natural organic, they look at it and just act like, oh my gosh, theatrical. And they try to piece together things to try to make me think I'm not being manipulated. And act like, oh, we're protecting the communities and women and children. Listen to what they do to women.
It's already being used. I mean,
if you talk to the victims, the TIs, one of the worst breakdowns, and it's pretty common. I think I can say the word simulated rape in forced orgasm.
You can say anything you want. This is the internet.
Okay. And so simulated orgasms and rape is extremely common, and especially violating for women. They complain about that torture breakdown the most.
You feel that you've been injustice.
You mean as far as the Justice Department feeling me?
Well, in terms of you being a victim.
You mean what I'm feeling?
Yeah, explain a little bit to me how you perceive yourself as being.
I have actual photographs of burns on my body. When I went to my doctor, the response was, how do I know you didn't do that to yourself? How do you even address that? I've passed 2 psychological evaluations. Not one, but two. The one physician said, "You're mentally sound as a bell." He said, "I don't have any idea what's going on with you." When I go to sleep, when I go to try to sleep, I feel like I'm being lit up like a Christmas tree. I feel every cell in my body just bouncing out of my body. I can't even describe it. I get electric shock of my rectum. I get electric shock of my nose. I've woken up with burns on the end of my tongue. I've had burns on the palms of both my hands. I vibrate. I can barely hold a piece of paper without quivering. Does that answer your question?
I'm trying to find what's the source of
The
these.
source of these exotic weapons. They talk about in 2970 that if you would pass it, it might give other communities the courage to do the same thing and show our Defense Department we are not the enemy. We are not to be attacked. We are not terrorists. Most of us are defenseless women.
There's a lot of women being tortured for the purpose of developing this weapon system. Unfortunately, there's a purpose behind this. And human subjects is what is needed. What is desired to develop this weapon system. And they have these PSYOPs and this facade and to cover up, make you believe that this is anything but this massive government that's been working on this technology for decades. But they do that to women and children too. And I'm glad I was able to say this. I'm not going to bring up the sexual torture. You heard how horrible they are. Part of how they attack our body. But I'll bring up the fact that they torture children all the time. And women like her.
Long history of abuse of the human research subject. Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage.
You heard electromagnetic torture, like electromagnetic radiation, which DARPA was working on in the freaking 60s to see how they can influence the brain.
And I won't go into details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I asked Dr. Amy Gutman to begin today.
You see how protective they are to children. You see how they proved it. That they are avenging, protecting children all around the world.
I am currently a speech-language pathologist working in private practice with young children. I had a 7-year-old client who has autism, and she was the most significantly affected of all of my clients. I eventually had to tell this client to go to another clinic, and they used her to threaten the most torture in me as well as their most extreme forms of torture. For several months, she would cry and scream horribly during our therapy sessions despite having a great day at school. This was highly unusual behavior for her, as she usually behaved very well during her therapy session. I observed her gasping for air a few times in the same way that I do when I am being more severely suffocated. The suffocation had been in a mild state for a while up until this point. Many of their torture methods are cyclical in severity. Right after I saw this child being suffocated, then I began to experience very extreme suffocation all day, every day, for about 2 months straight, and that's also when they made it worse when I eat. Then I also work with a 4-year-old little girl with Down syndrome, as well as her 5-year-old sister who also has Down syndrome. I observed both of these girls suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, "ow." I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions.
I know that this is impacting men, women, and children, and many have died. and understand the purpose behind this. And I remember saying that in 2020,
I'm one from the pinpoint one person, it's everybody, it's all the time, and so it discredits your character and your state of mind, which, starts to make everybody believe something's wrong with you, and then you start believing something's wrong with you. But it's not you, and you know that it's not you. It's just hard to prove. But don't go get, mental health help. Don't see a psychologist or psychiatrist. Most of the time, they're involved too. Your police are involved, the firemen, ambulance, people at hospitals, they're all involved. And it's unfortunate that we live in a society.
This is a woman describing how everywhere you go as a target individual, everybody's compromised because there's participant in all walk of life. And you got to understand this is what this program does. It creates an ecosystem of just people just breaking you down. And it's part of the developing of this weapon system. This the people protecting the community and children and women. And I say this here, knowing the truth that this is impacting men, women, and children, and many are dying. And I'm glad I got the chance to say this.
I'm a victim of organized stalking, electronic harassment, microwave torture, B2K abuse, and I'm asking you to help us end this crime against humanity, which has impacted men, women, children all around the world.
Hi, I'm one from Malaysia. My family are targeted individuals.
And it goes on. They torture children, they torture women in these disgusting ways. And some people lose their mind and cause mass shootings. You heard it all. It's part of this. But the truth is, these perps are supposed to negate and create a reality where this is something else but that. But I will not let these people who are involved in things like this.
Pretty extreme. I can feel it's going to be the same again today. Already on the harming of the private parts of my body. Don't really know what to do. I tried to go to a doctor to get some kind of pain medicine because what actually happens to me, what is happening to me is my actual physical body is being burned. So it causes me to go into shock and it's excruciatingly painful. And I have my limitations on the type of the duration and length of pain that I can handle. So it was a couple of weeks ago, I asked him what he was doing there, and he said that I needed to stay in my room. And I asked why, and he said that essentially they wanted to keep an eye on me for a while. And then I was like, okay, for how long? And he was like, well, we haven't decided that yet. And I was like, all right, well, I'm leaving. It definitely felt like if I talk about what's happening to me, that I'm being retaliated against. And I know the logical mind is like, well, everyone can't be involved. But it seems that, I don't know, if the government has the right to watch and the proper paperwork, just walk right in and take over a hospital. And it seems that that is a very real reality in a lot of capacities of the things that I faced. You just kind of just feeling some pretty general fear about my own safety. Because the government's burning the private parts of my body. Sometimes.
You understand? And many women and children are also dying.
So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality, and information curve. This is, satanic.
Evaluations.
Be stopped. People's lives at risk. They affect men, women, and children. Many have died already.
It's affecting men, women, and children, and many have died already. Now, these PSYOPs want me to not think that I'm being manipulated, to have these disgusting experiences that others has testified to experience, play with my libido in this degrading way, my thought process in this degrading, disgusting way. And I'm supposed to think that they use the verbiage that doesn't sound like they're manipulating my brain or modifying my brain and altering my brain and changing my brain to experience that. And they use this PSYOP, the facade that they've been using to try to confuse target individuals, to try to make me think that this is anything but a massive government. And they're like, now we prove that this trash. Now on top of that, to distract this lowlife, to know that these governmental entities, they're supposed to now also then they're the one mapping the brain, and this is why this trash actually working for governmental entities that clearly have issue with pedophilia. To know this fact and to see on top of that the entities behind this technology and behind this program have these kind of issues. It's magical.
The Pentagon, the child porn on the Pentagon servers.
Come on.
Bro, supposedly they found more child porn on the Pentagon servers than they found on any servers,
Could there be at high levels across a range of government agencies? Take a look at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Others also work.
Two-year-old and a 6-year-old. He was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified but sexual crimes involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that 2 officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites, acknowledged viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening in the general evil?
Ali, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the intel community, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top-level security clearance? Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired, can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, They go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking, these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles getting through their ranks? If it were up to me, you need to go into Congress, and Congress needs to launch a brand new church committee, number one, to talk about domestic surveillance operations, but number two, to ask the question, why are there so many pedophiles sitting by?
The CIA raping children and sexually assaulting children, and they're not being prosecuted? Where are they?
Has come under investigation for links to the proliferation of graphic material. Called Project Flicker, some 5,000 individuals have been identified as having subscriptions to child porn sites, including many DoD-affiliated persons. So this ongoing national investigation has now prompted the House to introduce a bipartisan bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy, where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security suites. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense, are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this. It shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who are perpetrating this.
So Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is the co-author to this bill. She said this, quote, "The notion that the Department of Defense's network and Pentagon-issued computers may be used to view, create, or circulate such horrifying images is a shameful disgrace and one we must fight head-on." Now, the fact that the Pentagon workers, be they civil or military or otherwise, already submit to a gauntlet of daily scrutiny just going in and out of work, is it fair then to the tens of thousands who are completely innocent to further allow that much more government intrusion into their digital devices or the things that they're dealing with on their computers?
Well, remember that what's being talked about here is not an intrusion into someone's personal device or even their home. This is about saying Department of Defense computers are being misused to share, to spread, to access child pornography. And when you step into an office, whether it's a Department of Defense office or it's the offices at RT America, wherever you go into an office, you do not have the right to simply use the technology within that office space however you want. And you certainly don't have the right to use it in a criminal manner. So essentially this bill is trying to
is a shameful disgrace, and one we must fight head-on, Spanberger said in a statement. According to child pornography watchdog Internet Crimes Against Children Child Online Protective Services, the Defense Department network consistently ranks in the top tier of Internet service providers for trafficking child pornography. It ranked 19th of nearly 3,000 networks surveyed in 2000.
This is the reality. This is the reality. And it's magical that these perps wanted me to identify with this manipulation and this pedophilia type of tormenting tactics and try to piece things together. For example, the pièce de résistance was like, oh, in 2014 you followed this person who looked like an adult, but I thought she was an adult. Follow her on some social media. Never talked to her, never interacted with her, but finding out she was now an adult. But I look like an adult. It's like, you see, that's proof. It's like, that's proof that I found somebody that looked like an adult and never interacted with her. And today when they make me have sexual stimulation to a teenager, like, no, you see, Ocean, you follow her in 2014, that's proof. Then they've been bringing up the things they manipulate and put together. Oh, you see, the Billie Eilish, you thought that, oh, this actress there, this child actress, you thought maybe when she's going to grow up, she's going to look this way. She's going to, and try to twist it in this. You see, that's proof. A teenage kid, and they stimulate me toward these kids. While they're actually working for governmental entities where clearly pedophilia is an issue and they can manipulate the brain in all kinds of ways and is altering the brain in this degrading way. They were bringing up these disgusting things they did toward these little babies. Oh my gosh. They do this thing where now they stimulate me toward feet. They stimulate me toward feet. Now, I don't have a foot fetish, but I can appreciate feet. Not the stimulation, but they do that toward children's feet. This little girl, this like 2-year-old, she had like this little like ankle bracelet. They stimulated me. And then every time when I look at women with this like ankle bracelet, they stimulate me. And they make me think of the baby that they stimulate. It's so disgusting. And try to use this noise campaign, this scare tactic of whipping lashes to make me, oh, yeah, that's because of, that's you. But this is the kind of nasty shit they do. And tell me I'm going to be castrated. It's like, I already get castrated. These people are forcing people to get sexual arousals however the way they want it, because this technology has shown that it's capable of doing that even in the 50s. And this trash is supposed to gaslight you to think that you're not being manipulated in these disgusting ways toward children. And they have these trash gimmicks, low-life bottom feeders who are these pedophiles, forcing you to have sexual stimulation toward children and then act like they're protecting children. Target individuals, stay strong and see this trash where they are. But thank you, God, for all this validation that we have. As they try to make, oh no, the validation is, remember what you did when you were a child in 8th grade. I'm like, really? Remember that you guys do the pedophilia type of torture and then you torture children and many of them are dying? Remember that the Department of Defense is ranked top tier child porn trafficker? Remember that the technology that you have there can make people have sexual stimulation? Remember that a brain of a child should never be comparable to a brain to an adult? If an adult has the brain of a child is mentally handicapped, you dumb shit. Well, you're known to do the pedophilia type of torture, and this trash are tormenting and torturing even children. Target individuals, stay strong and see this trash for what they are.